What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Hops Geek News. We're a podcast that talks about comic books, movies, TV shows, and we typically feature a beer of the week. This week, we have a really exciting Kickstarter guest on. Brandon is going to come on and talk about his comic books. And man, trust me, you're going to want to listen to this. You're going to want to rush to Kickstarter and pick these up. But first things first, I am Matt. With me is Lauren. As always, Hops Geek News is where you can find us on any podcasting platform, any social media platform. Lauren's been holding it down while I've been in the middle of moving. She's been just absolutely killing it. So go show her love on TikTok, on Instagram, all of the good things there. And then, of course, patreon.com/hopsgeeknews if you want to support the show. I'm sitting in my little hobbit hole right now. If you're watching on YouTube, my setup's all weird, but this chair is really comfortable. I
You look like you're in a studio.
I do.
Green screen.
I feel like since I'm sitting on this beanbag chair now, I always see like those TikTok podcasters and they got these really comfy chairs and they're holding their microphones and they're laid out. And that's kind of what I feel right now. I feel like I made it.
I feel like you look like if a college kid had a podcast.
Probably. We're going to start talking about some, I don't know. It's going to go into sports here before long.
College kid.
I was going to say, I'm expecting eventually the background to turn into like space or like some popular meme going on right now.
So I've got like my chalkboard up there that I write on, but yeah, no, I did green so I can kind of mess with some things. And look, I'm experimenting, as the kids say, we're figuring it out. But yes, Lauren, why don't you go ahead and tell us what your beer is before we introduce that fine voice on the other side of the mic, Brandon.
So I am drinking an Other Half Have a Juicy Day. It's a double dry hopped IPA. And you can see it's got a little smiley face. And there's a couple reasons I picked this one. One, we actually just recorded our Batman episode, and this obviously makes me think of Watchmen. So you're in the DC realm.
Well, but to be fair, there was a Batman story where you picked up the button and it was a smiley face. So
well, okay, perfect.
There you go. You're welcome. Thank God
but
for
it's
me.
Also looks like, the can, it's a tin can and it's very silver, kind of looks like it could be tin foil, which is connected to one of the stories. And in The Watchmen, if you saw the one on HBO, I haven't read the Watchmen comics, so I don't know if this happens in the comics, but the guy wears tin foil in his hat.
Yep.
So that is why I picked this beer, and because you can't never go wrong with an IPA from Other Half.
That's true. That is very true.
I have it in my glass Tracy got me from
I was about to bring Tracy up. I was about to say, Tracy, I'm getting closer. 5 hours now. 5 hours away from Tracy in New York City. And there's rumors I might be seeing her on a cruise next summer. Who knows?
It'll be exciting. If you're new to the podcast, Tracy is a friend of ours who has been known to send both of us beer, and we often drink, quote, Tracy beer while recording.
Yes. Now, for our guest, he is here to talk about some 3 really fantastic short story comic books that are available on Kickstarter now that you can back. We have Tales from Town City, The Foiled Hypnotism. I'm sorry. Of course, Tales from Town City was some of the things that have come back. Anyways, the foiled hypnotism. Geez, making sense of names and fierce pets. It has been a long day, Brandon. I am sorry.
Introduce yourself. Tin-foiled hypnotism. Tin-foiled hypnotism.
With the story, it was failed hypnotism. So you're right.
It was. It really was. So before we get into those good comic books, man, go ahead and introduce yourself. And then we always like to talk about a geek origin story that led to you getting into the comic book realm. So go ahead and hit us with that.
Yeah, so my name is Brandon Ingram, kind of over a publishing company that I made, Dismay Comics, Dismay Comics. I have to specify Dismay because sometimes it might sound like a southern version of saying Disney, like Disney.
Oh, but no. The mouse is coming for you.
The mouse, yeah, I'm trying to avoid the mouse, trying to avoid him knocking at my door. But yeah, so my origin story into comics was basically around when I was 6 or 7, which actually you could trace it a little bit back in terms of getting into superhero stuff. I was maybe 4 or 5 whenever Ang Lee's The Hulk came out.
Oh, yeah.
That came out. That's actually the first movie I remember seeing in movie theaters. I'm sure I probably saw others in theaters. That's the first one I actually remember seeing in movie theaters. So superhero realm.
Cooler than mine. Mine was Big Bird.
Big Bird. There was like a Big Bird movie.
Back in the 80s, there was.
I had no idea there was either. Like,
I had no idea about that.
Yep.
Well, now I got to see Hulk and Big Bird duke it out. Get that. But so yeah, I saw that. Then maybe when I was 6 or 7, my mom liked to go to yard sales and stuff. And I like to go to yard sales, and when I was a little kid, I liked going to yard sales. And I went with her to a yard sale, and there was a shoebox full of 70s and 80s Marvel, DC, Valiant. Well, I should also say 90s because Valiant, but all these varieties of comics, from Spider-Man to Adventures of Superman to like more obscure Marvel series like DP7, just all these different things. And that's really what got me into comics, even though it was like with all these comics, part 5 of a 8-part story.
Yeah,
Like
it was never like
I'm
part one. You're
jumping
in the middle of
exactly.
it.
Exactly. You're jumping into the middle of it. It's the first time you're reading a comic. But that was honestly like, I'm not saying it works for everyone. That was like the best way to just like get into comics for me. Cause then after that, I'm like, well, who the heck are they talking about here? All this stuff. And you're like, well, you got to go back. Let's go back. Let's go see the previous issues, the
Record
previous
scratch. You're probably
stories.
wondering how I got here.
Exactly.
I
But yeah,
was
that was pretty much the first initial thing that got me into comics.
Yeah, I love those stories because for all of us, I think so many people can be afraid to dive into a comic book. But
Yeah,
I'm like you,
overwhelming.
man, like it can be overwhelming, but just jump in. It doesn't matter where you jump in at, as long as you open that first comic book and it whatever hooks you, and then you can always go back there. The fact that if you jump in on issue 12, that means there's 11 other issues that you get to read before the 13th one comes out. That's
It's
the
a
best
prequel
part.
then. Well, I will
Yes.
say
And
a lot of comics nowadays they'll give you that brief synopsis at the beginning, and I love that because
Yeah.
sometimes I'll read the volume and then 6 months later I read the next volume, so it's
oh
nice to
yeah,
have that previously on.
oh yeah.
Absolutely. It's awesome. So, Lauren, why don't you go ahead and lead us off into diving into these really fun comic books that we've read?
Yeah, so your comics, you said that dark humor is what these comics are. So where did you draw inspiration? You were talking to us a little bit before we started recording about some of the things that inspired you. So I mean, dark humor is honestly,
My
I feel
favorite
like,
thing.
yeah, and it's also a great coping mechanism. It gets us
Yes.
through life. So who it could be, whether it's a celebrity, a movie, a comic book creator, what inspired you to make that realm of comics?
In terms of like who are kind of some of my inspirations that dives into me writing these, like the late Norm Macdonald is and was one of my
Yes.
favorite comedians. I liked his dry humor, and I also liked kind of the dark elements and the random elements that would pop up here and there in his stand up, as well as in his movies and on
And
Saturday Night
Weekend
Live and
Update,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like I really like his humor, as well as like there's a variety of comedians I listen to. I like Tom Segura. I like uh, Shane Gillis is a more recent one.
Oh my God.
Those are kind of like comedic inspirations for me. When it comes to writing, I'd say when it comes to like indie creation as well as comedy writing in general, I'd say Kevin Smith is up
Oh
there as
yeah.
an inspiration. Like I love Kevin Smith stuff, specifically like I do like a lot of his stuff, but specifically the Clerks series, the 3 Clerks movies, as well as the 6-episode animated series.
Listen, Brian O'Halloran's a friend of the show. No
He
big deal.
Really
is.
We
We
nice,
got to
nice.
absolutely
interview
love.
him and
Yes.
Jeff.
That's awesome.
We love those too. I'm so glad you said Kevin Smith
He
because
came on the show once and follows my personal and the geek, so I tell everybody he's my best
he
friend.
used your
That's
shoe
awesome.
as a bottle opener.
He
Okay.
did. He
We're
used my shoe
pretty
as a bottle
much.
opener.
That is awesome. Yeah, I'm a
Their
huge fan
claim to
of like
fame.
Kevin Smith and like everything dealing with Clerks. That is awesome. Like so yeah, it was one of those things where uh it's not entirely you see in this series specifically with Tales from Town City. Uh but I do like with Kevin Smith movies, the more like dialogue based humor where it's not always situational, it's not always like this big action thing that brings about the humor. It's almost just conversation, like people having a conversation on a podcast, and humor comes from that. Like I like that from his type of movies. And so Tales or Tinfoiled Hypnotism isn't entirely that realm of humor in terms of like the vulgarity of some of those things, but just like tenfold hypnotism, for example, is just like it's conversation. Like that
Mhm.
story is essentially like a web series sketch. Like there's not a whole lot of action. It's two homeless villains trying to use
It
an
was
expired
amazing.
coupon.
It was
Like
it was amazing.
Well, because
thank you.
at first you like
Pirate
weren't
guy.
legitimately, you were like not sure if you're in some like post-apocalyptic
You're not sure
era.
what's going on.
And
And I
then
don't want
you,
to say too
Yeah.
much though, because
yeah,
it's such a good ending too.
Thank you. But yeah, it's one of those things where like I like writing that type of stuff, even to the point where like a series I'm writing right now is the main inspiration of it literally is Kevin Smith work, specifically Clerks. Like the series I'm writing right now is
you sure it's
literally
not
anyone that's
Tusk?
a it's not it's not Tusk. It's definitely not Tusk.
Oh
But like
God, I didn't hear what you said at first.
I do like Tusk though. Here's the
I
thing.
do,
Oh,
I
there
do
was a
like Tusk.
walrus, and when
I
you
really
said the one
enjoyed
guy looked
Tusk.
like walrus, I thought about Tusk.
That actually I haven't thought about it. I mean, like I thought about it when I wrote it, but like the initial inspiration of like the walrus animal in Fierce Pets wasn't from Tusk, but I had recently rewatched Tusk, and so I wanted to work in a walrus into that super animal team.
I loved it.
So I think that's where that came from.
I think
But
that's one movie I'll never rewatch. It traumatized me.
It was I liked it personally,
I
but
liked it.
Uh
It's
it scared me
I
to my core. I don't know.
I think I like it up until like the very end, and the very end's not bad either. But yeah,
Well, he's
I
working on it.
do
I
like
will
it.
watch the sequel.
oh
Oh
yeah.
So
yeah,
speaking of Kevin Smith, actually there was recently a 4 series from Dark Horse came out. Absolutely recommend that if you haven't watched that. It's Clerks, and it's just more backstory on the characters we
yeah.
love.
Oh yeah, the comic issue, yes.
So this is not your first comic run, and I believe you had mentioned that the characters are somewhat tied, which is a thing Kevin Smith does. We get a lot of Easter eggs. Things. So are these stories completely standalone from the old ones, and you just get fun little nods, or are you creating a whole universe where things are going to connect more? Like, what's your whole intention with all of these stories that you're creating and have created?
So with the Tales from Town City series itself, with each of the stories, like the three stories in this first issue, ultimately you can read each issue by itself without having to go back to the Gallows Man. Like someone fresh, brand new can enjoy Tales from Town City without pretty much any context from the Gallows Man. But those that have read the Gallows Man can also read Tales from Town City, enjoy it like the new reader, but also enjoy it in the sense of like, oh, like these dead bodies, these are people that got killed in the Gallows Man.
Oh, that's so
Or
Oh,
oh,
cool.
like the mortician, that's the mortician that Gallows Man, when he's in like his Clark Kent persona, he works at a funeral parlor, and that's the guy he works for. And then like little stuff like that, like Hypno Ray and Rusty Hook, the two homeless villains, they're in a couple
Hey, we
pages
don't
of
use full
Gallows
names, we
Man.
use initials.
Yeah, HR and RH. Yeah,
yeah, I need
yeah,
their origin story.
yeah. So they originated from that, and then the Fierce Pets one. Really, the only character in that came from the Gallows Man was Hangmutt. Like you saw Hangmutt in the Gallows Man, and this was kind of just exploring like what does Hangmutt do when Gallows Man isn't around. And I do want to mention for those like I'm rambling on about this. I do want to mention with the Gallows Man. Again, you don't have to read it to understand Tales from Town City, but to understand the tone of this world, kind of the Gallows Man is set in the 1940s, and the best way to describe it is like 1960s Adam West Batman meets Inglorious Bastards. Like that's the best way to describe it. Because set in the
Sounds
1940s, he's
fun.
If you're not
thank
sold
you.
on that alone.
Yeah.
Thank you. He's beating
You're in
up and
the
killing
business of getting
Nazis.
vengeance.
Yes.
Exactly. He's beating up and killing Nazis, all while having like the fun jovialness of Adam West Batman, the cheesy jokes, the funness that's with that, all while beating up and killing Nazis. So I mentioned that because Tales from Town City, it's a spin-off of that, follows minor characters introduced in that series, all while kind of keeping that tone of the Gallows Man.
So now the Kickstarter right now is Tales from Town City with those 3 stories, correct?
Yes,
So
yes.
can people still get Tales from the Gallows Man, or I'm sorry, the Gallows Man, can they still get that on your Kickstarter page as well?
Yeah. There's a few different tiers to where you can get Tales from Town City as well as issues 1 and 2 of The Gallows Man. It's going to be a 4-issue miniseries. The Gallows Man is. The first 2 issues are out. Issue 3 will come out next year, and we'll eventually get issue 4 out. But yeah, you're able to get Tales from Town City 1 as well as those first 2 issues of Gallows Man through this Kickstarter.
Okay, and that runs till, you said, October 4th?
October 5th. October 5th. Yeah.
So now I know you said that you're kind of like an indie comic book publisher. Is it a team of just you, or is there like a group of you guys that are kind of like putting out these stories, like, or do you work with somebody different every time?
In terms of the publishing realm, it is a one-man army, but with actually
you don't answer to anybody.
that is the plus side with this, is like I have 100% creative freedom with this, and I enjoy doing this. Like this isn't my income. Like this isn't my main source of income, my job, and for it to be like this hobby or this passion thing, like I want to have fun with it. So I'm able to do that and have 100% freedom in what I'm making in this, and I enjoy it a lot. The publishing realm, yes, one man army, but there's a ton of artists that I work with that are amazing. Like with Tales from Town City, Juan Romero, he's the artist for Tenfold Hypnotism as well as Fierce Pets. Like he does an amazing job. Like I think he's great at not only the over the top violence and gore in something like Fierce Pets, but also like emotive, conversational based art and humor with something like Tenfold Hypnotism. He does great in my eyes, as well as Helen Bolton, who does the Mortician story, Making Sense of Names, and the letterer Nikki Powers. I've worked with her on like a ton of stuff. She's my go-to letterer, basically. And the cover artist, Juan did the main cover art, and then Thomas Tikas, he did the variant cover art. He does the main cover art for The Gallows Man. So I've worked with him before. Yeah, so publishing realm, one man army, but in terms of these books, like all these amazing people involved.
Nice.
And how did you guys all come together to create this world of Gallows Man and Tales from Town City?
It ultimately started from early 2019. As I was getting into making comics, like just scrolling through DeviantArt, trying to find like specific artists I wanted for different stories. At the time, I was making a horror anthology called Dismay Avenue, and I was making the first 2 issues of that. And so I was looking for artists, and I mentioned that because a lot of those artists I worked with, I wound up working with on The Gallows Man or in Tales from Town City.
Nice. And I will say, you know, as far as Fierce Pets go, because that's come up a few times, when I first saw it, I was like, oh yeah, cool, like superhero pets. And then it gets to the good stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, cool, killer sloths. Let's go. This is sick.
It reminded me of Steve Urena's Slowpoke.
Yes.
It was a really good story. I enjoyed all 3 of these stories. They are, you know, shorter comic book stories, so for people, they're like, oh, I have to read 3 issues. It's like, this is very worthwhile. It's,
if you just want a good chuckle.
Yeah,
just a fun time.
I texted Lauren after. I was like, wow, these comics were a lot of fun as I was reading them, and it's just that's kind of like a lost thing. People often forget, like, they can actually still have fun when creating stuff like this. And so
it doesn't have to be a big
some people like take it seriously, but also have fun. You know, that's what this is. Comic books are fun. And so these are 3 unique stories that you don't see every day. It's kind of like a fun, I thought of like DC Super Pets, but like, what if they were actually like murderous
DC
heroes?
Super Pets meets The Boys?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just a lot of fun. So kind of, what was your thought process going into these? What, I know we already kind of talked about like your inspirations of comic, but like, how did you come to these 3 very different stories?
I do want to touch on something Lauren had mentioned earlier, which it'll broaden, like it'll click then for like everyone that's read this. You had mentioned gives Steve Urena's Slowpokes vibes. Juan did the art of Slowpokes. So
Oh,
that
that's why
also
that name
helps,
sounded
like,
familiar too.
yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
Juan did, because that's how I found out about Juan. Like, got him to work on these books. Is I'm a fan of Slowpokes, Slowpokes 1 and 2. I'm ready to see 3 whenever Steve does a 3. And I was a fan of that. And when I was writing Fierce Pets, like, I had Juan in mind because I was like, I've seen him do killer animals, animals killing
Yeah.
humans, and that being humorous
Cute
and stuff like
animals
that.
too.
Yeah, cute animals, but just being vicious and slaughtering humans. I was like, I've seen him do that.
Mhm.
So like I gotta get him to do Fierce Pets. Like that was already his portfolio. Slowpokes was his portfolio for Fierce Pets. And I was like, gotta get the guy to do it. So got him to do that. Then I realized through Slowpokes and Fierce Pets that he can also do that emotive conversation type comedy. And I got him to do Tenfold Hypnotism. I'm sorry to interrupt your
No,
question.
no,
What
no.
was your question though? I'm sorry.
This is what I wanted right here. Like, how did you come to like these very different stories? Because we go from, homeless men trying to use coupons to a mortician to, killer heroic pets. It's like, how did you end up on these 3 stories?
Well, ultimately, whenever back in October or November, I was trying to break down because it's going to be more than one issue. Each issue will feature different characters, like different characters within this world that's been seen in the Gallows Man. I was trying to break down which characters I wanted to write about the most from the Gallows Man that were only in the Gallows Man for like a few pages, maybe. And I had a list, and as soon as I made the list, like Rusty Hook or HR and RH were the number one I wanted to write because I wanted to dive deep into homeless villains,
Homeless pirates.
because that's
They're
ultimately the thing
heroes in
is
my
like
heart.
they're villains, but how bad of people are they? They're
They're
kind of
innocent.
dumb.
Look,
They're
in my
innocent. They're
opinion,
weird.
I would have played along if I was on the other end of that. I would be like, you're right. These coupons are not expired.
I know. If you're
Well,
that desperate, like these, yeah, just give
Yeah,
them.
it's not my
yeah.
money. Like, yeah, of course.
Exactly. And yeah, that's kind of the thing is just like that ultimately like pathetic situation that they're in, like seeing these characters in this world of the Gallows Man, where it's like the Gallows Man, if you want to dig deep into it, you don't have to. It ultimately is a fun time. But if you dig deep into it, it's like desensitization of violence, like hyperized in this reality, as well as harkening back to the golden age of comics, where at that time you had heroes, or maybe they're not dressed up as heroes, but they're killing people. They're killing muggers. They're killing uh, murderers, yes, but also petty thieves sometimes. And all while little 5-year-old Billy is reading that, he's like, "Yeah, I want to be like this guy one day." Yeah. And so I kind of like ramp that up a bit in the Gallows Man world, where like the whole society is like, like the radio announcer's like, look at the Gallows Man and Newsboy hung the frog out to dry tonight. Yes.
Oh my
Like
God, the names.
just that hyperization of it, and everyone looking up to them, and just kind of seeing with Tales from Town City what these minor characters would be like in this realm, like the 2 homeless villains, like how do they operate in this world? The mortician, and the goofiness of him and the Gallows Man. What does he do when the Gallows Man isn't at work with him? Like, what is he like? He's talking to dead bodies, trying to make sense of names, all while incinerating them, basically. Um, and then like the Fierce Pets thing, like what is Ace the Bat Hound doing when Batman is not around,
Yeah,
basically?
So
it's
do go ahead.
no, I was just saying that's so much fun. I just love, because I'm very ADHD, so I love the variety of stories in here.
Thank you.
So do all the stories connect in one way or another?
They connect in the universe in terms of with connecting to the Gallows Man, like all of the stories take place either before the series starts or in the middle of like issue 1 or issue 2 or whatever it may be. Like the Mortician story, for example, takes place at the end, like after issue 1 of the Gallows Man, because by the end of issue 1 of the Gallows Man, all 3 of those villains are dead. So now you have the Mortician doing his thing. And then Fierce Pets, Hangmutt, don't really have, you can't really say like a specific time, whether it's before Gallows Man #1 or after Gallows Man #1. But ultimately, you see Gallows Man's routine in the Gallows Man of him being like, in the beginning of that story, where he's like looking in the mirror and he's taking off the cowl and he's like, Bart Dickerson is ready to do the day, basically. Like that's in the Gallows Man. So it's basically like, here's his morning routine. He's off to do his day job. This is what Hangmutt is doing. And then, thank you. And then HR and RH, the 2 homeless villains, like you see them in the Gallows Man in that alleyway, Far Side Alley, which is like full of homeless people as well as homeless villains. It's like, what are they doing when someone like the Gallows Man isn't running through the alleyway, basically? So it does tie in, but not entirely like, oh, this will tie into this exact thing that's about to happen or whatever it may
Right.
be.
It's like a fun thing. Like, oh, I know a girl who slept with a dead guy in the bathroom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, those are often more fun tie-ins. Well, and I love that stuff too, because I feel like it's a bigger payoff for the person who watches or reads all of it. And I think that's, you know, it's fun if you watch one, it's more fun if you watch all or read all.
Exactly.
I very much agree. And so, Brandon, why don't you let us know where people can actually go and support this? Do you have any fun rewards for unlocking certain aspects? Drop us the knowledge.
You did say you were working on something, so tell us about that too.
And that too.
Yeah. Remind me, because I do want to talk about that. But with the Kickstarter, so Tales from Town City #1 can be found on Kickstarter. You can go to my socials, Dismay Comics, and look at the link in all of those. Or you can just go to Google, type in Kickstarter, Tales from Town City. It'll be the first thing that pops up. We're currently funded. We're at our funding goal. We do have stretch goals, though. We're working on stretch goals, various stickers, posters that get included with all the physical backers that back it. I also want to mention the comics are completely done. Like it's completely done. It's ready to go to the printer. Like as soon as the Kickstarter is done, go into the printer. Nice. So as a backer, you don't have to worry about like, oh, like what if they don't get funded? Then I won't be able to get the book. Or what if the book's not done? Like, will there be issues getting it done? Both of those are knocked out. It's funded. The book is completely done, ready to go to printer. All it requires now is if you want to read this book, to back the Kickstarter. It's only going to be available through the Kickstarter online. There's nowhere else you'll be able to get it online. It will just be Kickstarter. And as of recording, about 3 weeks. But to keep in mind, it ends October 5th. So back and before October 5th, you can get issue 1 of Tales from Town City for just $5 digitally. Fun little time. You can get issue 1 of Gallows Man, issue 2 of Gallows Man, issue 1 of Tales from Town City, all 3 of those digitally for just $12. It's over 130 pages of comics, as well as some interesting behind the scenes stuff within Gallows Man that's included in that for just $12. Physical copies of Tales from Town City start at $10, and there's also physical tiers where you can get Gallows Man 1, Gallows Man 2, Tales from Town City. You can get those, as well as there's variant covers for both. You can pretty much get all that. There's a variety. So there's also a t-shirt that I really like. It's got the Fierce Pets on it. It also has the Fierce Pets logo. And I forgot to mention it earlier for those listening. PETS is an acronym. It stands for Precise Ecosystemic Tactical Squad. Kind of harkening back to those Wildcats days. The covert action teams. but I did something with the S. The S isn't plural. There, the S does stand for something here.
Yes, that's very true.
Uh,
Yes.
yeah, but so yeah, you can get that T-shirt. I think it looks awesome. And yeah, there's just variety. There's value in all the tiers going up, but literally any bit helps. There's a tier for any budget ranging from $1 to $75. Any and every little bit helps. So thankful people can help with that. And regarding the thing I'm currently writing, I'm almost done with it. I'm not entirely saying like almost done. It can go beyond this, but I'm currently writing the 5th issue of a series that I'm writing called Curbsided. That I don't want to reveal too much now until the first issue is like halfway done in terms of art and stuff. But literally the best way to describe it is if you like Clerks, like this is the series for you. Like
Awesome.
it's a lot of that conversational work based humor that you see in Kevin Smith stuff or specifically Clerks.
I feel like that's kind of a lost art form too, that people, because you don't see a lot of that dialogue heavy things these days, and I love it. If there's really clever, witty dialogue, it goes a really long way, and you don't always have to
Oh
like
yeah.
show. Man, I'm happy to see a return to form for that, and I know that whenever you go out there, and I'll be interested. Can't wait to read that, because again,
Thank you.
from fans to
But we're
Clerks to
huge
fans of
Kevin
Clerks.
Smith fans.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we are too. So I can already tell you right now, I'm probably really gonna really
Well,
enjoy this one.
yeah. The
Thank you.
last
Yeah.
Clerks movie made me cry more than laugh. Good
Oh my
God.
gosh. Yeah. I recently showed my sister all 3 of the Clerks movies, and we just watched Clerks 3 like a couple weeks ago, and there were at least 2 or 3 times she was just bawling.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I saw it when he had, he did the few screenings like around. So I walked into it
Yeah,
with
yeah.
no tissues, not expecting to need any tissues, and just what the fuck?
Yeah, I saw it because I think it was playing for like one weekend. I
Yeah.
saw it the weekend it came out. And yeah, it nearly it
I mean, it was
nearly
still
had me
hilarious.
breaking down. Oh yeah, it was hilarious, but also those heartfelt moments like
Yeah.
nearly had me in the theater just like bursting into
Yeah.
tears. Like it was really good.
Yeah, Kevin Smith has grown up, but you still get the dick and fart jokes, so it's still good.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah,
We'll never fully grow up. Well,
but with Clerks 3, I highly recommend people, if they are fans of Kevin Smith or Clerks, definitely watch that documentary about the making of Clerks, and then watching
yes.
Clerks 3.
Yes.
It's amazing seeing how extremely
Similar.
meta it is.
Yeah.
It's the most meta movie he's made is Clerks 3.
Yeah.
100%. It's a phenomenal. And so Brandon, thank you for coming to hang out with us. Everybody,
Thank
I
you.
can't tell you, like, having read these comics, you're gonna want to pick these up. They're so much fun. If I don't know how else to say it other than just like see for yourselves in the most plain way possible.
You want a good giggle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
just a
if
fun time.
if you want a 10-minute break from just, whatever stressful things going on in your life, I can promise you that these are very much worth picking up. And
Thank you. That's ultimately my goal with like this and the Gallows Man is just a fun time to like not entirely say escapism, because escapism can be good, but yeah, like taking a break from whatever
reality.
may be going on in your life, as well as like you guys had talked about it at the beginning of the show. Like it's good to have these like deep comics that are serious and like pull at your heartstrings and various stuff, but sometimes you gotta have some fun in there. Like Tom King is one of my favorite writers as a comic writer. I love Tom King.
Oh, absolutely.
There's sometimes though I don't always want to see and cry about like how awful war is. I love seeing it, but I don't want to see it all the time. And sometimes I just want something fun to read. So I kind of like having this as people's little little break in between either the serious stuff they're reading or the serious stuff that's going on in life. Yeah.
Without a doubt. And this is, I mean, it's perfect. And it's a really good time. The writing is really well done. The art is also just absolutely fantastic. You get a lot of really good colors, really good dialogue. So everybody pick this up. And Brandon, I can't thank you enough for sharing those with us and for coming to hang out with us, man. It was a pleasure to
Thank
read
you.
them, and we'll be here. We can't wait to read what you have coming down the pipe. Everybody should go and absolutely back this comic book. The link for it is right here in the bio of this episode. Lauren, do you have any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, I don't. This is great to finally get you on here. I know we scheduled this a while ago, but yeah, give him a follow too. Dismay, like he said, it made me think of Disney too. I'm not gonna lie.
It does.
Dismay, but I live in Orlando, so
Yes, do that. Follow, see what other great things are coming down. And for everybody else, we're gonna see you guys here soon. Check out the Kickstarter, support your local comic book shop, support some indie
support
creators
your local
and
brewery.
your local breweries. Everybody support local business. There you go. Local coffee shops. That's where I've been hanging out at lately.
Get an
So do
indie
all of
comic and
that.
read it at a local brewery.
There we go.
Oh yeah.
There we go. So thanks for hanging out, Brandon. We'll talk to you soon. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you.